IAC, and it is about 9:02. We're going to begin. We have Senator Laylaw on the phone. Gloria, are you on?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I know the weather was horrific today. And we also want to welcome Senator Ed Casemeyer, who is newly appointed to the IAC, and we're just thrilled to have him and his expertise on this group. So welcome. Both our secretaries are here, Secretary Churchill and Secretary McCord. So we do have a quorum, and so we're going to begin the agenda now. And I want to start with...
Madam Chair, we have called the meeting to order and the roll call and any revisions to the agenda.
Oh, that's right, we do have a revision.
And we have one public comment.
All right, so do you have any revisions to the agenda?
I do, Madam Chair. We had a couple of projects that came in late that we were able to process, contracts rather, for Baltimore City. We have just given those to your members. The rest of the contracts they've had for an amount of time so that they are in the consent agenda. Maybe we would want to, thank you, maybe we would want to take these two separately instead of the consent agenda.
Let's do that. So after we have public comment, we'll take that out first and then do the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Will that make sense?
Yes.
All right, so we have public comment today, and so I would like to invite John to come up. I'm sorry, I'm not going to attempt your last name, so say that again.
Andrzak.
Andrzak, thank you.
I think so, yes. Ladies and gentlemen of the Commission, good morning. My name is Jack Andrzak, and I'm before you today on behalf of the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. NASBP is a national trade association representing surety bond agents, the people who place bid, performance, and payment bonds for contractors who do business with the state. I'm here to discuss bonding of the pilot program project. My client has submitted comments to Mr. Gorell, and I understand that you have them. I will be brief. NASBP tracks and reviews legislative and regulatory requirements that affect or address the bonding of government construction projects. More and more of these programs include P3 projects, like the IAC Innovation Incentive Pilot Program. As you're probably aware, over 20 states have specifically addressed bonding requirements for P3 projects. NASBP's sole interest is assuring that P3 projects require the same performance and payment security that is mandated for any other state or local construction project. As you're aware, in 2013, the Maryland General Assembly recognized the sound policy reasons for including payment and performance bonds on P3 projects by revising Maryland's existing P3 law so that P3 agreements are subject to the security requirements of Maryland's Little Miller Act. This is set forth in Section 10A 401A of the State Finance and Procurement Article. Very recently, one of NASBP's Maryland members, a bonding producer in Prince George's County, was reviewing a RFQ for a P3 school construction project. He had some questions. So what he did is he reached out to the NASBP's national headquarters, and this led NASBP to re-examine Senate Bill 92. That led to the IAC, which led to the IIPP Administrative Procedure Guide, and that led to me being here before you today. In our review of Section 6 of the statute and regulatory section of the guide, we found that it did not specifically state that the bonding of school construction projects was a requirement that could not be exempted for a project. Further, subsection 2 of Section 6 of the guide states that procurement requirements could be accepted for or exempted for projects except for those items listed in subsection 4A. We couldn't find section 4A in the draft, and I'm assuming that that's going to be addressed by you all. So really, without any other guidance, it's not clear what procurement requirements can be waived and which are mandated. It is not NASB's intention to tell the Commission how to conduct its three-county pilot program or to criticize it in any way. The program seems like a very forward-thinking and worthy experiment. But based on NASBP's experience with P3 programs in other states, NASBP is of the opinion that the bonding requirements for projects be clearly indicated in its guide, or clearly explicitly stated as a requirement. Performance security is just too important. Therefore, NASBP wants to suggest that the Commission clearly indicate in its guide that all school construction projects, especially those utilizing private partner arrangements, have or are required to have performance and payment security, i.e. bonding, for all of its partners. To this end, NASBP respectfully suggests that the Commission consider including in its administrative procedure guide, perhaps in Section 6, a provision that could read, open quote, P3 contracts must contain the performance and payment security requirements found in Section 10A, 401A of the State Finance and Procurement article. This makes it crystal clear that performance and payment security is required in any P3 project. It's just that simple. Okay.
Thank you so much for your comments today. We appreciate it, and we
Certainly.
have your written testimony.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your willingness to hear us.
Yes, sir. All right, so, Bob, you want to go ahead and do the Baltimore City thing, and then we'll do the consent agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, there's a handout that is titled Item 1B, Summary of Contract Awards. There are two Baltimore City projects that we recently have added in. We needed to get clearance through the DGS, and they have now provided that, and we're ready to recommend those contracts for approval. Jamie Bridges is our project manager for Baltimore City and can answer any questions you might have.
Jamie, do you have anything to add?
On all these projects, I think there's been quite a bit of, a lot of time and attention paid to them by the IAC. They're ready to go.
All right, are there any questions on the two additional projects? All right, if not, do you want to make the motion, Jamie, and then?
I don't have the motion, but I can make it.
Oh.
Our member needs to make the
Oh,
motion.
that's right, okay. Do we have a motion to approve? I thought there was something to read. Apologize.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll make the motion to approve the two contracts listed in item 1B.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, we have a second from Denise. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstention? We're all in favor. Thank you very much.
Great. And also, let me please add, this took a pretty big commitment of work from DGS, Clarence, to make this happen, so
Well,
it was
kudos-
appreciated.
Kudos to Clarence. Please extend that to Clarence from us. Secretary Churchill.
Thank you for the acknowledgement of Clarence.
Sure.
And we'll pass that on.
Good.
All right, thank you, Jamie. And now we'll entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Denise. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. And now we should be up to Jamie again for the Baltimore City Rescind and Amend projects, and this is in Section 2 of your book.
Great, thank you. Just for some background, in a letter dated May 9, BCPSS requested that one FY 2018 CIP project be canceled, according to the city, due to the extent of structural repair work needed at Furley Elementary School. Contractor bids for the roof and structural project came in at over $8 million. And at this time, BCPSS does not have additional funds available to cover the difference between the funds allocated to the project and the actual cost. The IAC allocates funds to capital projects based on the cost estimates provided in each LEA's annual CIP submission. Due to internal policies and procedures unique to BCPSS, they do not expend local funds on project design until state funds have been allocated to project construction, which means that the cost estimates in the annual CIP submission are not taken off of construction documents. In order to provide the best possible cost estimate, City Schools combines extensive technical and facility-specific expertise with a broad and deep awareness of local, state, and national trends in the cost of materials and labor. But without construction documents to take off of, City Schools will continue to sometimes submit inaccurate cost estimates and receive insufficient allocations, in particular on complicated, uncommon projects. I just want to say that in this case, this is not that. In the case of this project, the scope of work on which the cost estimate was based included cornice repair and mitigated soil consolidation, but a comprehensive structural review in the design process identified 2 additional structural concerns, and that explains the difference between the project cost estimate and the bid price. In this case, staff does recommend the approval of this motion.
Jamie, they are moving forward to try to get design in place before they bring projects to us.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any questions for Jamie? Secretary McCord?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, the process in Baltimore City is we're approving rescinding the Furley project, which sends like $3.5 million back to the reserve account, and adjusting the Belmont school account by canceling like 428, sending that back to the reserve account, and pulling from the reserve account back out to Belmont.
That is correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
That's the big picture.
That is really helpful. Thank you. Secretary McCord has a unique ability to put things in layman's terms for the rest of us, so thank you very much. All right, so do we have a motion? Jamie, you want to read the motion?
Sure do. The motion is to approve a request from Baltimore City Public Schools to cancel one fiscal year 2018 capital improvement program project at number 206 Furley Elementary School and transfer $3,501,000 to the state contingency account reserves for city schools.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, do we have a second? Second. All right, we have a second. Senator Casemeyer, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion carries. We'll go on then to the B. Jamie?
Great, sure. Again, as a bit of background, in a letter dated January 21st, City Schools provided an update to the plan to install air conditioning units in all City Schools classrooms without air conditioning. According to City Schools, when the original plan was developed and delivered to BPW in January of 17, the scope and cost associated with the electrical upgrades needed to install air conditioning units were unknown. The update provides and justifies, based on the last 24 months of plan implementation, a revised cost estimate and a timeline for plan implementation. According to City Schools, the unit cost of a classroom vertical package unit is around $20,000. However, based on actual bids and contracts on VPU projects, the total installation cost per classroom is between $40,000 and $50,000, with most of the added cost attributed to electrical upgrades needed to power the units. Despite the additional cost, City Schools still considers VPUs to be preferable over window AC units, which would require the same electrical upgrades because VPUs both cool and heat. VPUs meet codes and standards such as the ASHRAE standard for ventilation, fresh air intake, and VPUs have lower total cost of ownership given the lower cost to operate and longer functional life. At this time, per a letter dated May 9, City Schools requests approval to cancel one VPU project shown in Table 1 and to transfer the funds allocated to the project statewide contingency account reserves for City Schools. Also at this time, the City Schools request to approve to amend the fiscal 2020 CIP to include the one project shown in Table 2 and to allocate funds from the statewide contingency account reserves for City Schools to that project. Approval of this motion would allow City Schools to deliver high-priority VPU project on time and to improve conditions in 24 classrooms. This time, staff recommends the approval of this motion. If there are any questions?
Any questions? Senator McCord?
Yeah.
I'm
Secretary.
Senator, I'm Secretary. Gosh, I'm sorry. It must be the, maybe one day, right? It's a prediction.
Appreciate your confidence. Now, this is the second half of what we're doing here to pull the money back out and put it into this project for the air conditioning system.
That's right.
And so it adds 2.6 times the cost. And we need to understand that there's a magnitude of cost here every time we're getting into an old school situation. And the underlying systems that would support the air conditioning are old and have to be redone. And then the concept of putting a vertical package unit that will allow it to be heat also and give better ventilation overall is a better solution. But it is more expensive. It's 2.5 times more expensive. And their cost estimate between $40,000 and $50,000. If you divide this out, it's $46,500. So it's right there in the middle of what they've estimated. So it's not a surprise to us that it costs that much more. I just need to comment that it's just getting the idea that we can stick an air conditioning unit in a window and plug it in is not what's going on here. We couldn't plug it in if we wanted to, if the system isn't going, if the electrical system is not going to hold it. So we have to upgrade the electrical system to make sure the system actually functions. And so, if you had 25 kids in a classroom for these 24 classrooms, it's $1,860 a student. But we're about making sure that every student has a space and a seat where they can learn.
Right.
And so that process, as difficult as it is and as expensive as it is, we're going about it in a reasonable fashion. I congratulate you for your help that you've been providing to Baltimore City and to make sure that we continue in a reasonable fashion to get things done. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Senator?
I think we have one other comment from Secretary.
Secretary, please.
Okay. Thank you. I agree with Secretary McCord's comments. I certainly understand there's a lot more to upgrading the electrical system than what you stated in your statement. But my question is, we've got more of these types of projects that are coming up, and I just want to, I'm not against this. How many school air conditioning projects do we have that we've approved through the CIP coming up from Baltimore City? Because you're going to have to go through this process with each one, correct?
That is true.
Yeah.
I do not have that number off the top of my head, but I can definitely
Right.
furnish that to you.
So this won't be the first time that this
No.
comes before us. It's going
That's
to
a good point.
come across for all the schools, and I was just wondering, is Baltimore City looking at kind of combining this so that we're not having a one-off on this?
Well, these action items are really based on the first round of bids in which they were not aware of the cost to upgrade the electrical. Now that they know that it's between 40 and 50, and they understand some of the factors that contribute to the 40 to 50, their cost estimates are probably going to be far more accurate. And so I would expect that we will be approving these as part of a CIP and not have to have this conversation
Thank you.
as
I
much.
think, Jamie, just like you did before, maybe bring to the next meeting that kind of a summary for us, and that will, then we'll know. And I think, both secretaries made good points, and I know we had heard many discussions in the news and in the past with Baltimore County's upgrades and the idea of window air conditioners. There's no plugs usually under most of these windows, so there are lots of issues to consider, but I think a summary would be helpful so we know how many are coming up.
That's great.
Senator?
Thank you. Excuse my lack of knowledge, but just reading about this, I noticed it says heat and cool.
That's right.
So is the intent that these units will begin to heat these rooms too instead of a central facility? Or
It all depends on the facility and how reliable and functional the heating system is. But the in-classroom heating and cooling allows, at a minimum, a backup in the case of heating
Okay,
difficulties.
so it's not going to replace a central heating system. It's just going to be there if needed.
Again, it depends on the extent to which the condition of the system in place. But it does provide in-control classrooms for the teachers to make sure that the climate in each and every classroom is good for learning.
All right, any other,
If I could, on that point, it's very important in a classroom the teacher has a good learning environment, one that it's not too hot, not too cold, and these provide that, as well as fresh air, which is really important, and it's something that we tend to overlook when we're talking about window air conditioning units. They don't provide that. I also wanted to make a point that what we are spending on schools as new and replacement schools is in the $40,000 to $50,000 per student. So this is a good short-term measure. I think we'd love to go out and replace a lot of these schools, but that just isn't possible. And this is a solution that will last 15, 20 years. Maybe along the way, 15, 20 years from now, when we come back and do it again, we can make a more permanent solution. But this is pretty darn good solution for the
Right.
dollar spent.
I would add that nobody would say this is perfect in particular city schools, but what they did do is they went out and they found a solution to a problem, and they worked for it, and now it's starting to come to bear.
very good.
Thank you, Jamie.
All right, do we have, actually, will you read the motion, Jamie?
I can do that. The motion is to approve a request from Baltimore City Public Schools to, first, cancel one FY 2019 CIP project at number 217 Belmont Elementary and transfer $428,000 to the statewide contingency account reserves for Baltimore City Public Schools. And second, to amend the fiscal year 2020 CIP to include one project at 217 Belmont Elementary and to allocate $1.116 million from the statewide contingency account reserves for Baltimore City Public Schools to fund the project.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Secretary Churchill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Senator Casemeyer. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any abstentions? I think we have unanimous vote. Thank you. All right, thank you, Jamie. You'll be back up shortly.
I will. I will just add thank you for your intense interest in this topic.
Very welcome. We appreciate your work in this area. All right, so we're going to welcome Michael up,
Couldn't move them.
We had to wait till the next.
and we'll be in section 3 of your books.
Yeah.
Talk about some
Keeps it going.
Gotcha.
facility changes.
Good morning.
Morning, Michael. Good to see you.
Good to see you all. So as you know, just brief context for these, we're constantly working with the LEAs on any property changes and transfers, and reviewing a couple of the items today. Both of these were previously brought as informational items, but as we reviewed it with the LEAs, we recognized that they needed some formal approval by the IAC, so we're bringing them back for that purpose.
Great, thank you.
Both fairly minor ones.
All right,
The first one is an approval of property transfer in Dorchester County for a small parcel of vacant land on the east side of Jones Thicket Road, which was previously, has been part of the school property. The school district and the county are interested in selling it. There's a .23 acre adjacent to former school property. There is no existing structure on the site, so.
all right. Do we have a motion to approve that?
You want me to go ahead and read the?
Yes, would you please?
Okay. The motion is to approve the transfer of .23 acres of vacant land, a portion of a former school property on the east side of Jones Thicket Road, property identification number 01010425, tax map 34, parcel 0087 in Vienna, Maryland, from the Board of Education of Dorchester County to the Dorchester County Council for the purpose of disposition as surplus property.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, Secretary McCord. We have a second.
Second.
Second, Secretary Churchill. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Go on to the second one.
Okay, the second one is the approval of property transfer and disposal in Prince George's County for the former Brentwood Elementary School properties. A few years ago, probably before a number of the members were here, there was a property transfer that enabled the Fairmont Heights Replacement School to be constructed. The process took a little bit of time to unwind, and so now we're bringing this item here to approve the transfer and disposal of a couple small parcels that were part of a larger acquisition previously. So it's fairly complicated, but also fairly routine as well. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about it, otherwise I can read the motion.
Any questions for Michael? All right, go ahead and read the motion.
Okay. The motion is to approve the transfer and disposal of 4008 Wallace Road, 4008 Webster Street, and an adjacent parcel at the northeast corner of Banner Street and Wallace Road in North Brentwood, Maryland, occupied by the North Brentwood Community Center, formerly the Brentwood Elementary School, from the Prince George's County Board of Education to the Prince George's County Government, and then to the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission to complete a land exchange for real property associated with the Fairmont Heights High School replacement project completed in 2017.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
I can make the motion. Can I amend the motion to
Yes.
add the acreage, 1.42 acres?
Yes.
I think that should become a standard practice, that the motion should contain the acreage. It's an oversight. I'm not
No, I understand.
not jumping on my own guy, but that's,
Right.
I just want to make sure that when we do this, that if we're giving 27 acres away, or we're, transferring 27 acres, that we have the acreage. So it's amend the motion to add the acreage of 1.24 acres.
All right.
And then with that
So we have a
amendment.
motion that adds the acreage. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Denise. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? All right, motion carries. Let's go into C.
Okay, we just have a couple of informational items, one from Wacomico County, where they're purchasing two parcels adjacent to the Mardella Springs Middle and High School to expand the property. They have the opportunity to do so, and then a right-of-way adjacent to the Montgomery Blair High School for a BRT stop.
All right, any questions for Michael on that item? All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Arabia, we're going to talk a little bit about the Qualified Zone Academy Bonds funding, which is Section 4 of your book.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Up until fiscal year 2018, QZEB, a federally funded program, was administered by the IAC. The intent of the program is to improve, repair, and maintain existing school facilities. While QZEB was not reauthorized by the United States Congress, prior funds remain available for allocation. We've identified 5 projects that could use a small portion of these dollars. The remaining funds will be recommended for allocation to new project requests. We expect to present these recommendations for your consideration at the July or August meeting. Are there any questions?
Do you want to just review those
Yes.
for us? Thank you.
So for FY 2017, we had a QZEB project, Charles County, Arthur Middleton Elementary kitchen renovation. It was approved for a state allocation of $380,000. We're requesting additional funding at $82,297. So the total revised allocation would be $462,297. Charles County also has an open space enclosure at the same school. It's a 2018 QZEB project. It was approved for $266,500. The additional funding requested is $122,388. Total revised allocation would be $388,888. Garrett County Southern High School has a roof project, QZEB, for 18. The approved state allocation was $150,000. The additional funding requested is $102,000. Total revised allocation would be $252,000. Washington County, they have a Northern Middle Security Vestibule. It's a FY 2018 QZEB project. It was approved for $243,000. Additional funding being recommended is $44,000. The total revised allocation would be $287,000. Wacomico County, Mardella Middle High School has a science classroom renovation. It's an 18 project. It was approved for $51,906. The additional funding being requested is $139,094. Total revised allocation would be $191,000.
Okay. Are there any questions on any of the additional allocations? All All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Senator. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, we have unanimous acceptance. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, and now we're going to move on to Section 5, and Arabia's going to go through the 100%
Yes.
of the 2020 Capital Improvement Program amendment.
Yes. As background information, in December, the IAC approved 75% of the preliminary capital budget, which was anticipated to be $280 million. Based on this number, we provided projections on how the funding could be allocated up to 100%. In February, the IAC reviewed the 90% allocation. A few months later, we learned that the approved capital budget had come in lower than expected and that the enrollment growth and relocatable classroom fund had increased. The difference impacted a number of school systems and narrowed the IAC's ability to fully fund a number of projects. To assist the school systems, the Commission granted the LEAs the flexibility to move fundings from one project to another. In addition, the IAC staff sought guidance from the local education agencies on what projects should be funded with prior year appropriations. Today, we're recommending an increase of $14.5 million to the total current CIP. The total funding for the CIP comes from 6 grant programs, with the capital budget being the largest resource. So that you can easily see what has changed from May until now, we have created a comparisons table. This was a walk-in item and should be included along with your binders. Yes. So if I can walk you through the amendments. In gray, the column gray identifies the county. The light green column is the total allocation approved by the IAC. The green column is the LEA's amended total recommendation for June. The orange column is the difference in what was approved in May and what's being recommended here today. The columns with yellow highlight represent new authorization and special program initiatives that were used to get to the total recommendation of $365 million. There were no project adjustments made to the enrollment growth and relocatable classroom fund. However, we thought it would be useful to show this source since funding through this program is included in the total CIP allocation being recommended here today. Because prior year appropriations, prior year funds were applied to a number of project budgets, new authorization became available to be recommended for reallocation. So to put that in context, if we can turn to page 3 and look at Prince George's County. The LEA had $4.7 million in prior year appropriations available. They directed us in writing to apply $3.3 million to their third priority, New Glen Ridge Middle. However, that project was already fully funded and did not have enough new authorization to swap out. We spoke with the LEA and prior year funds were applied to their second project, William Wirt Middle. Applying these dollars freed up $2.8 million in new authorization, which was then reallocated to other LEAs around the state because Prince George's County did not have an adequate amount of requests to utilize the funds that were available. If additional funds become available, we will recommend to the Commission that partially funded systemic renovation projects be made whole. The LEA summary and project details are in your binder as backup materials if you would like to review a particular project, or would you prefer that I walk through the allocations county by county?
Madam Chair, if I could make a comment.
Yes.
The reason that these adjustments are occurring is we still have some of the original budgeted money that is fenced off, about $28 million.
Yes.
You had previously given us permission that if those dollars are released, that we will be able to go back and work with the LEAs and make them whole.
Right.
Okay.
And I think that's what you've done, and unless anybody wants to go through each one individually. All right. Are there questions about any particular county that you would like Arabia to address?
Madam Chair, I don't have any questions on this. I will compliment whoever crafted this. It's much easier to go through it and look at the salient points that have changed, so as opposed to going line by line through this document. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right. So we will read the motion.
Yes. So the motion is to approve funding amendments to the fiscal year 2020 capital program 100% allocation and planning approvals as specified for each local school system in the attached document dated June 13, 2019.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, Denise has made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Senator Casemeyer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Arabia. Good job. And now let's welcome Joan Schaefer to come up, and we'll be in section 6 of our book about the Healthy School Facility Fund applications.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this first item has a motion with it. We'd like you to approve the administrative procedures for the Healthy School Fund and allow us to make some non-substantive edits if we find that we need to do so. I believe you have a handout, is that correct?
Yes.
And that is it's been updated in a minor way. So I'll go through this. In 2018, in the 2018 legislative session, Senate Bill 611 was passed, and that led to the creation of Education Article 5322, which created the Healthy School Fund. I'm not going to go through all of this. I just wanted, this is a basis, and I want to give you the background. So in this past session, added to that, the legislature added requirements with MDE in consultation with MSDE, DGS, and MOSH to adopt regulations requiring not to develop regulations, they had done that, but to add lead in drinking water as one of the high priorities for funding. Okay. The legislation identified that we should award grants to schools based on the severity of issues in the school, and including air conditioning, heating, indoor air quality, mold remediation, temperature regulation. And added to that, again, this year, is the issue of lead in drinking water. If you turn to the Healthy School Procedures Guide, I will go through and identify identified the changes that we have made. On the first page, under background, it's a minor change about the regulations requiring testing for lead in drinking waters to be reported to MDE, MSDE, MDH, and the local health department. On the next page, this isn't a change, but I do want to point out to you that the fund will require a state local cost share. We do that sometimes with these smaller programs, and other times we do not. I want to point that out to you. The approval basis that we have in here identifies a level of lead at sources where water is normally ingested exceeding 5 parts per billion. 20 parts per billion is the standard for for an elevated level, but the legislature had emphasized that school systems should try for 5 as the maximum. And we also, and then following that, we have lack of unreliable or insufficient air conditioning, unreliable or insufficient heating, temperature regulation, and indoor air quality. We also make a point of saying that additional consideration will be given to elementary schools and special needs schools, followed by middle and high schools. And just to make a point of the elementary, we felt that it was important to address elementaries first for the lead in drinking water. And the LEAs must do testing, and it's broken out over 3 years, and the elementary schools were the first group. We've worked with MDE, we've met with MDE, and they do have a lot of information so far and a pretty good database. Another big issue with this program is that projects will be reviewed, prioritized, and approved by the IAC within 45 days of the submission due date. I wanted to point that out to you. There were just a minor in the next paragraph on page 3, item A3. We changed per the requirements of MDE and EPA to state and federal regulations. On page 4, item 5D, in the middle, we just changed the word implemented to encumbered. And I believe that is everything until you get to the very last page, where we modified the schedule to allow the LEAs to have a little bit more time to get their projects underway. So the last 3 dates where we show all project funds to be encumbered, we changed that to we gave them 4 extra months, 6/1/2020, and then the deadlines following we extended. So the applications are due on August 1st. We have a few weeks to review them. We are to review them all at once and award or recommend to you for award those schools that have the severest issues. Then we will bring the the recommendations of the applications to you at the September meeting. If you have any questions, may I?
Secretary McCord.
Yeah, just 2. One is a clarification on page 13, the cost share percentages. There's no indication of where they're derived from. Are they cost share percentages that were mandated by statute somewhere else, or when somebody looks at the procedures,
okay.
Where do they come from?
These are the cost share percentages that we used for the CIP.
Okay.
The legislation was silent on cost share, use of cost share percentages.
Right. I'm just, there's no, by looking at the manual, there's no indication of where these cost share percentages come from, and no one would know that they're
That's
different.
a good clarification.
Okay,
different
we
or
will
worse.
add
That's all.
clarification.
Just to describe that, yes. And then the other thing was, the statute that's cited in the materials includes item 7 for windows.
Yes.
And,
So, if I could, and I'd like to point you on page 1, under the purpose, the last sentence. This is $30 million statewide. We want these funds to go as far as they can on the 2 years. So we're looking to prioritize projects to correct issues posing immediate life, safety, and health threat to occupants of a facility. So all of this is setting up a view of how that we want the LEAs to prioritize their work. So you mentioned windows. If we have a window that needs to be replaced because the air is coming in and so it's dirty, that may not be an immediate life, safety, health as compared to 30 parts per million of lead in an elementary school. So we are taking this list of deficiencies that the legislature have told us that we can prioritize and looking at them first on their face, but secondly, if that window has been leaking and caused a mold problem where the environment now is risking the health of everybody in the facility, particularly that room, it is now more eligible than just repairing the windows. So what we're trying to do to give some clarity to the LEAs currently is first with the water. We do look at that as being where we need to start. And the 5 parts per million, legislature has said that we can fund to that level. But as far as priority, it's still 20 parts per million. And we've checked this with Department of Education, Environment, and they are absolutely good with us putting the higher number as a priority. So we are using their database, as Joan said, and looking across the state. It's not complete, but it'll allow us to give an order of magnitude of what it's going to cost this first year just to correct lead problems in drinking fountains, in coffee makers, anything that we might ingest water. After that, we'll let the LEAs know what balance is going to be left for these other projects and give them clear direction how to be thinking about this. So we believe that whenever we get all of these projects to have to look at once, they and we will have a good understanding of what it is we're looking for.
And the legislation identified windows, but windows is a project, it's not a deficiency in the sense that we are looking at them. So replacing windows would address mold remediation or temperature regulation, and so the LEA is to define that. They could submit a window project, they could submit a roof project, but it has to be for one of these items.
If there's a classroom that has no heating, that's a health problem. Right. I need to correct, and thank you, Senator.
Yeah.
I said 20 parts per million. I meant 20 parts per billion. It just came out wrong. I'm sorry.
Just 3 more zeros, it's no problem.
Yeah.
Secretary McCord.
I am actually not critical at all of how the ranking of what the legislature asked us to do came out, because I think that makes sense. What I'm concerned about is we've left something out of what the legislature thought was important, and we're looking at windows as an issue that has to do with the indoor environment. And if somebody has a tree come through a set of windows at a school and they ask for help for the windows, and they can't indicate a mold problem or a temperature problem, it's a window problem. It could be number F. Be letter F on the list, but leaving it off the list. Everything else on the list has been covered. If you match what the legislature asked for, air conditioning, heating, indoor air quality, mold remediation, temperature regulation, and window plumbing, and then windows is kind of not in our procedures.
That can be corrected.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That I think we've covered the legislation, not second-guessing the legislature's intent.
Yes.
I think you've done a good job
Okay.
applying that and ranking what we would consider good projects. But I just would hate to have somebody say, I need a window fixed, and the statute says I can ask for money for that, but it's kind of not even in your procedures.
It's an error.
That's all.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you.
It's all in the details, isn't it?
Yes.
Very good. Senator?
I just wanted to clarify, is there cost sharing in this program or not?
Yes.
On this formula, based on this formula? It is.
Yes,
Okay.
the way that we've drafted it, and Secretary
All right.
has pointed out that we need to specifically say what
Yeah.
the state share
I just
is
did
and
one
where
other
do
thing.
they find it.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
That's it from me. Thank
Joan,
you.
you want to read the motion?
Okay, the motion to direct staff to release administrative procedures pending non-substantive edits by staff to solicit applications from LEAs and the Maryland School for the Blind for projects that will improve the health of school facilities, and to evaluate project requests based on a competitive application process.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, Senator Casemeyer approves. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Secretary McCord, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Joan, next section, Section 7, on the State Center for Child Abuse and Neglect report.
Yes, this is an informational item. It's really a status of a task that we must complete with the State Council on Child Abuse and Neglect. And we're to create best practice guidelines, and the draft of those are in a handout that you're receiving right now. We expect to bring the final best practices document to you in July, and the document also has to be approved by the State Council on Child Abuse and Neglect. So the IAC's role is to work with that group, the council, and develop these guidelines and best practices for the assessment modification of physical facilities and spaces to reduce opportunities for child sexual abuse. I just read that from the language, the statute. So we have met, along with the Maryland State Department of Education School Facilities Branch, with the council. We started meeting with them in the fall and received a lot of feedback from them, but nothing that was finalized. We went ahead and we prepared the guidelines as we saw them. And overall, we modeled those after the idea that schools need to be designed in a way that adult-student interaction is easily visible. So we are attaching the best practices, and I'd like to go through them just a little bit with you because you hadn't seen them before. So we make a point in the first paragraph of the magnitude of the issue, the problem, and we compare it to the problem that we have, excuse me. I'm sorry, I am so dry.
We'll give you some water. Hold on, Joan.
Thank you.
Help is on its way.
Thank you. We have contrasted it with the number of school shootings, or the number of children that are affected by school shootings. So just to read this to you real quick, 1 in 10 children will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday, and about 2/3 involve physical contact. Although the likelihood is great that these figures do not represent the magnitude of the problem due to underreporting. They suspect there could be a great deal of underreporting. And there's actually no real good national statistics on this yet. on the sexual, on the report, even the reports of the sexual abuse. So this statistic contrasts with far fewer students, actually 1 in a million, over approximately the same period, having experienced school shootings since Columbine. And then you see, I put in the detail there. So in the third paragraph, we also identify that anything that is done for this, to create safety for students for this issue, must also work with the safety, the design for the safety of school shooters and other security issues.
Sometimes they're in direct conflict.
Sometimes they're in conflict. It has to be considered. And we also believe that the LEAs, again, will know best. But like I said, there is no real good reporting. Okay. And then the best practices, I won't go through those. They all make a lot of sense. If you have any comments before we finish up over the next month, we'd be happy to receive them.
Right, so if anybody wants to, you can send those to Bob if you have any concerns or questions as you review that before our next meeting. Thank you, Joan. And we'll go on to the next informational item, which is in tab 8.
Okay. So this item is to give you an update. It's also informational. It's to give you an update on the Round 2 FY 2019 School Safety Grant Program request approvals, that kind of thing. And just for those who aren't totally familiar with this, each LEA's allocation is based on their proportional total enrollment as of September 17, 2017, and on their proportional total facility square footage. For the second round, the first round was released, and we have completed the application period. The second round, we made some changes, and we removed the application of the state local cost share formula, and we also made it that there is a minimum allocation for all the LEAs of $200,000. And for this program, projects are accepted and approved on a rolling basis, and the IAC has delegated staff to make those approvals. We're very early in the second round, so this chart at the bottom of the page does not show a lot. I assure you that we keep getting applications in. We are, and on the next page, you can see the chart. We'll keep this updated for you. But we are now up to 23 projects that are pending. I just want to mention that for round 1 projects, we have a couple of changes to those projects, and that's because 2 LEAs received some very good bids. Anne Arundel has been able to add another security vestibule, bringing their number up to 12. And then Talbot County had some dollars left over, and they have also requested a project. So we will be able to make some changes there, but all good.
All right, any questions for Joan on those projects? Secretary
Madam Chair.
Churchill?
Yeah, I may be mixing up previous items on this, but I seem to recall the last time that we were briefed on this topic that there were 2 school systems that hadn't taken advantage of this. Is that correct? And was that now satisfied? Like I said, I may be getting my programs mixed up.
I think you're getting your programs mixed.
Okay.
Every school system took advantage of this.
Okay, thank you.
We were in constant contact with them to urge them to
To get them done.
get their submissions in, yes.
Secretary McCord?
And I appreciate your efforts on this. It's been very good to keep us updated, and even before we get the schools, this is school safety grants, but then we're talking about the visibility of students. You guys have the ability to remind people about that before we even issue guidelines that, make sure that we don't put security measures in place that encourage somebody to have the contact with a child. So I know you're working on both of those things, and I know you're working to make sure that this program doesn't have to be undone by a grant later to open the doorway up or put a window in somewhere. So I know that. I'm just complimenting you on both of those things, since you have both of those projects that you're working with. And we've just identified that some of those things are mutually exclusive. They don't always have to be if somebody puts a little more design effort into it. You have your eyes out for that, and I appreciate that.
It's actually the Maryland State Department of Education, the school facilities branch, that they put their eyes on the schematic designs, and so they see these projects as they go through, and they make a lot of these comments already.
Good, thanks.
And it's for information. Every LEA is different. One shoe doesn't fit all. So they make them aware of these conflicts and to consider them in their decisions. We don't know enough to be able to say, go do this. And as you know, in the press currently, you see a 1 in a million chance of being shot, but 1 in 10 of being sexually abused. But that's not the one that we are focused on for the most part. So the best we can do is to get that information out so that the locals can consider it and make the best for their populations.
Great, thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, Joan. Appreciate it. And now, Jamie, I ask you to come back up and give us your status report on Baltimore City HVAC projects.
Thank you.
Yeah, the colors are much deeper in the handout than in what's in the book, so thank you very much. For
Thank
these
you.
experienced eyes up here, for some of us, I mean, I'll just say.
Thank you, and good morning again. Yeah, the handout with the colors and larger size makes it a little bit easier to see this. All right, so an update on the extra $15 million for HVAC projects in Baltimore City Public Schools. Just as a note, the commission approved in the consent agenda 10 design contracts for these projects today. So that's good news, and those are moving forward. I'll also note to support that approval, Cindy Smith at City Schools and her staff had to transmit a very large pile of procurement documentation to the IAC for approval of these contracts, and Carrie on staff was able to process that enormous pile of documents. So I think that is pretty impressive and speaks well of this agency. Looking at the spreadsheet, I would just add that there has been an addition to the spreadsheet. We're trying to track project health on the far right-hand corner. So you'll see project health for design would be red for behind more than 2 months, pink for behind less than 2 months, light green for behind less than a month, not behind is dark green, and then ahead more than a month is green. Project health for construction, again, red behind 2 months, pink behind less than 2 months, light green behind less than a month, not behind is green, ahead more than a month is blue, and 2 dots is operational. So I think with a pretty quick look down the right side of the page, you can get a pretty good understanding of where all these projects are. I would ask for any questions or comments. I'll just let you know next steps on this probably will just be continuing to update the information, make sure it's as quickly accessible as possible, and to keep updating you all. Yes?
Secretary McCord.
Just thank you for the presentation. Thank you for giving us the update and giving us a way to appreciate what's going on in a kind of an instant way. Keep the calamine lotion flowing, keep the red dots off the page as much as you can. Thank you.
Very good.
Management by exception.
Yes, exactly. Other questions for Jamie on this issue?
I would note, actually, looking at the pink dot, that is simply a wait for materials.
Okay.
So I expect that pink is going to turn to blue pretty soon.
Very good. Good to know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I think that concludes our open session business, and I am going to ask for a motion to go into closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice. I need a motion to approve that.
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, so that's from Secretary Churchill, and do we have a second?
Second.
Secretary from Denise. Any, all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? All right, I think we're ready to do that, so we're going to go into the caucus room, and we will not be coming back into open session. Yes. Okay, thank you, everyone.